is first, but the important word is parties equal. And in spite of that concept of egalitarianism in a cabinet, you come to a parliament, you come to a Republican so-called parliament, and you are dividing members into categories. And we are supposed to accept that. The Prime Minister has accepted it. The Honorable Prime Minister this morning did not reject it. In my view, and this will become subject to a party position, apparently the Prime Minister wants to run the DLP and all the other parties, perhaps some of which getting some financial support anyhow. The issue of subvention was mentioned. Look, Your Honor, please let me tell the people of Barbados what Westminster is about and what republicanism is about. Westminster is an outgrowth of a monarchical system of government in which the head of the state is a king or a queen, as the case may be. And power devolves from top to bottom. In a republican state, power devolves from the bottom up, and those who sit in parliament do so as authentic representatives of those at the bottom. Westminster is different. Westminster has been an outgrowth of the monarchy in which power devolves and derives from the top to the bottom. And going from the top to the bottom, at the top you have the House of Lords, sitting under the monarch. And then the House of Commons, commoners, from the Lords to the commoners. When you transfigure or transform yourself into a republican state, Parliament becomes representative not of a head of state, not of a monarch, but it becomes representative of the people. And let me demonstrate by practical example one of the fundamental differences between the monarchy and a republic. And let us contrast the United States against England. In England, when a man is charged before the court, his indictment reads, the Queen. Well, the Queen is dead. King Charles. An indictment before a court in England would read, the King against John Brown. John Brown is charged with a criminal offense. It says, the King against John Brown. Or the alternative language in the presence here now of a former prosecutor and a good one too. The clerk of this parliament used to be a prosecutor. Can I call his name? Can I say he used to be a good prosecutor? I do. I did a case against him already. Can't remember who won. And if he chooses not to remember, he would know why. But he was a good prosecutor. And when he brought that indictment, it read, and he would have said to the judge, the Crown or the Queen. The language was used interchangeably. And that is consistent with my view that the state and all persons who acted within that state were acting on behalf of the king, on behalf of the crown. In the United States, when a man is charged, when John Brown is charged, the indictment reads, the people against John Brown. And that is a very live illustration of how the two states structure themselves. One a monarchy, one a republic. In the monarchy, all persons who act on behalf of the state act on behalf of the monarch, the king or queen, as the case may be. And therefore you have the queen or the king or the crown, they say interchangeably, versus John Brown. In the United States, it is the people versus John Brown. Sometimes we need to pause and understand language and what language means, and that language is related to consciousness, and that language, unless it has meaning, it stands for nothing. So that when the United States says the people against John Brown, they are speaking of the essence of republicanism, that power resides within the people, and that power devolves upwards to agents of the state. In the Westminster system, it is the other way around. Power derives at the top and devolves downwards. And all persons who act within that state act on behalf of the monarch. Some Barbadians now are pausing to ask whether we are a republic or whether we are Westminster. And the real answer to that is related to the active and real use of power in this country. And I repeat that it is untenable for this country to be plodding along without a republican constitution while claiming to be a republic. Plodding along with a republican constitution inhering with Westminster values. I say to the Honorable Attorney General, who's been very active after lunch, that a constitution is of highest priority. Now, it is urgent. It is more urgent than what this Parliament is doing today, because what this Parliament does today is an exercise in futility, except that it gives us a chance to examine the anatomy of this government and to find it wanting. Bring the Republican Constitution and bring it with urgency. Don't interrupt the business, the people's business. If you claim that you're a republic, do not interrupt the people's business with any election. And if you bring the election, well, I am not a prophet. I am not a prophet. You were given 5 years. But bring the Republican Constitution. Give public life. Give this nation constitutional substance. This government must not be allowed to hide behind the ultimate prime ministerial power that is afflicting public life in this country. I make bold to say that no one is sure as to where power and authority lies. Because this country now sits in no man's land. And hardly a person speaks of power unless in the same sentence they call the title Prime Minister, as if that nomenclature of Prime Minister equates with power, ultimate power. And that is the sad state of affairs in the political and constitutional life of this country. Am I supposed to remain silent on that, ma'am? No, I will not still my voice. The people of this country have too much to claim. And the people of this country will demand a Republican Constitution. The people of this country will demand that an election is not used to ambush political parties, and more so to ambush the people of this country. Do what must be done and do it properly. And I therefore reject this proposal for any hierarchies within this Parliament. At a practical level, where these national MPs going to sit next to you, ma'am? Or on this platform? And the commoners, I don't know, well, not the commoners, call them that. The ones from the constituencies, I don't know if they'll put the honorable member for St. Lucie somewhere, well, he won't be back anyhow, but I don't know where he will sit. Because I assume he will be a constituency MP. He will deal with the bus service and the lights and the state of the roads. While, well, I don't wish to be invidious, but maybe there are others who will be elevated, reminiscent of the House of Lords, and they will be the lords of the manor. And they will probably sit on this platform and look down on the commoners. Maybe. Maybe. That is not the only reason why I prefer when you occupy that chair, man. But this parliament and the people of this country will hear me say that if there is to be any representational hierarchy in this country under a Republican constitution, there must be 3 tiers of representation. At the apex, a Senate. Under the Senate, the House of Assembly, where every member is equal, as is now. And a 3rd tier, we deliberated for some, even through COVID, maybe 2 years, and came up with a scheme of local government and asked this government. I remember going to the cabinet. I was a very well-behaved backbencher, you know, man. And I visited the cabinet one day upon invitation. And I presented the proposal of that commission on local governance, all 11 of us, including the one who now writes the Bob Marley speeches. Including him. And we came up with what we thought was a brilliant proposal for representation at the local level, and we asked this government to make that a 3rd tier of representation at the local level. Ma'am, I'm not going to give you the details, but I will tell you this. One of the important proposals is that it was non-partisan. Because we felt that people who lived on a street next to each other, who sat on a local council, should not find themselves divided by partisanship. And it was such a beautiful document. It was such a beautiful proposal. May I ask this government today, where is it? I think the Prime Minister the Honorable Prime Minister referred to it today, but I want to know where it is. And rather than hand it to the people of this country, this government is handing to the people of this country a parliament that will divide itself along lines of ancient elitism, where the honorable member for St. Lucie, if he survives, unlikely though, will be a mere constituency representative, and his more favored friends, whose names I'm tempted to call, I am really tempted, they will become national MPs in this place. And this is what the people of Barbados are hearing today, endorsed by the Honorable Prime Minister, that this Parliament must now be divided, and in the short time that the Honorable Member for St. Lucie has left, he will be relegated to the peripheries of this chamber, while his more favored friends, and if they get me pets, I can call him. You want me to call a name? You want me to call a name? You love a hierarchy.
With my permission, sir.
You might be on the periphery.
With my permission, sir, only.
You might get punished for that with this statement here. Don't forget. And so, Your Honor, that is my position on this proposal for national MPs. Not to criticize the commission. There are some distinguished people there, but we reserve the right speaking on behalf of freedom-loving people in this country, people who are committed to democratic principle, we reserve the right to disagree. And we disagree fundamentally on this issue of national MPs sitting in a parliament with something called constituency MPs, a return to elitism. But if this government finds itself embracing a value system in which elitism must be preserved within the context of republicanism, then it reveals that the government's understanding of republicanism is not well-grounded. It is misconceived. Let us come, though, to one of the other proposals, overseas voting. And we do notice that the Commission rejected overseas voting. We have been engaging the diaspora for some time. And I don't know if the government has been similarly engaging the diaspora. I'm not going to take it upon myself, speaking as an individual, to voice my individual view on that of a parliament, a government, a society. But I would want to encourage the government to listen to the voice of those in the diaspora, some of whom still live here, 3 months here, 3 months there, 3 months here, 3 months there. Some of whom may still have properties here. I would encourage and invite the government to listen to those voices. It is a very contentious issue, and it is not an easy issue to deal with. But how do you dismiss nationalist and patriotic commitment without a discussion? I am not stating a position, ma'am. I'm just encouraging the government to embrace that nationalist and patriotic commitment to this country. There are some people who never really, in many ways, settled in the countries that they adopted and that adopted them. And you speak to a man or a woman who has been in his adopted country for 40, 50 years, even with citizenship. And when he says home, he's talking about Barbados. So that let us not be so insensitive as to entirely dismiss that patriotism with the two-letter word no. Let us engage them. And let us see if there is some ground, some accommodation with condition. Because the rational view will be that if you don't live here, maybe the answer would be no. But do they make a valid claim that even if they're not ordinarily resident here, and that's the term that lawyers will use, even if you're not ordinarily resident here, maybe there is a sense in which you are sufficiently resident here through the ownership of property and the payment of taxes, important, and the remittances that are made, and the lives that are well lived here because of their generosity. It is worthy of discussion, and it is a worthy discussion. I am not today taking a position, ma'am. The only position I take today is that the government, and any government, should take these claims seriously. Permit me to move on to the question of an independent speaker. And I will say briefly, maybe it has nothing to do with my own peculiar experience here over the last year and some months. I must not speak subjectively, I must speak objectively. And beyond my peculiar experience of being alone on this side, and as I always say, though not lonely, I am still of the view, Your Honor, that the office of the Speaker should be judicial and not political. And that the holder of the office in which you sit today, ma'am, should have a term that exceeds the term of a government in Parliament. That if it is 5 years, the Speaker would sit for 7 or 8 years to guarantee, or as some guarantee, of independence and impartiality. It really does ask a bit much of a speaker who represents a constituency, who sits in a government, who attends parliamentary group meetings of a government, who functions fully as a member of the government, except that he's called upon to make rulings such as you are called upon today, ma'am. It really asks a bit much of that person to make that intellectual leap to impartiality and independence. It is possible. It is possible, ma'am. But an institution wishes to guarantee, not to you, ma'am, in that office, but it is a guarantee that must be given to the public. And it is a guarantee that must be given to a parliament, that he or she who sits in speakership must be, according to its structural arrangements, independent and impartial. Today, that is not an easy thing to achieve. And I speak not only of today, but all of the yesterdays that have gone before us in this Parliament. The office of Speaker has been a difficult office because there has been no legal and structural guarantee as to his independence or impartiality. In a republic, and a modern republic, Your Honor, that must change. The office must become judicial and cease to be political. Enough on that, Your Honor. It may be of some embarrassment to this government that at paragraph 21, the Commission recommends that there should be no more than 12 ministers and no more than 12 ministries. I did not expect the Honorable Prime Minister to disclose that today, here, in this public place, to the people of Barbados, in a country that has had a cabinet of twice that number. And I will turn and look at the Honorable Member for St. Lucie when I say that. Here we have a recommendation from a Parliamentary Reform Commission which recommends 12 ministries and 12 ministers, and this government is parading across this country with twice that number. Need I say more to the people of Barbados? That this commission is confronting this government with a proposal that collides frontally with the practice of this government. Even the commission, ma'am, even the commission established by this government, headed by a former president of the Senate and a long-standing member of the party in government, the distinguished one himself. And I see nothing in the report that says that his was a dissenting voice. And he now must take collective responsibility for a commission that is confronting this government, that impliedly accuses this government of waste of public resources in funding a cabinet that is twice as large with a few extras as what the commission recommends. It's the largest cabinet in the history of this country. And it is a cabinet headed by an honorable prime minister who complained when there were 17 in the previous cabinet. And at the time, maybe that was the biggest cabinet ever. But if the honorable member for St. Michael Northeast likes to compete, the honorable prime minister has shown in this propensity for competition that she can outdo 17 and that she can go to 24 or 26 or whatever the number used to be. And the ladies and gentlemen, distinguished as they are, all honorable men and women, maybe meet some embarrassment in trampling upon each other's political and administrative terrain. Because there was a time, admittedly, when I was not sure, when I was fighting for those noble fisher folk